The last round of the tournament was very well poised. The standings were so close that anybody in these top six could mathematically become the champion. Now you can see that at the beginning of the sixth round, before the sixth round, the final round, there were two people, Vaishnavi and Aditya in 4.5, but they had already played against each other. They had a draw. They made a draw in the fifth round. So they wouldn't be playing in the sixth round. So Vaishnavi was playing Ahan in the sixth round, and Aditya was facing Atan. If Vaishnavi wins, she would be co-champion with Aditya if Aditya also wins. If Aditya loses and Vaishnavi wins, she becomes champion. So it was very interesting. These two games, like Vaishnavi Ahan and Aditya Atan, were two interesting games, and it turned out to be a very intense battle in on both the boards. So I'm going to show you both the games from the beginning to end. It was very interesting. Let's first see Aditya versus Atan, because that was a game that finished first. The Ahan Vaishnavi game went on for a lot of moves, 82 moves, and ended very late. This game was crazy, like it was wild. And let me take you to the moves. E4, E5, knight out, bishop, bishop. So we have a Juku piano. Castles, knight F6, D3, H6. So Aditya goes for a very safe opening, no funny stuff. C3. So now he's going for the D4 break, and Atan directly plays D5. This can be quite risky. Like the engines already give +2 for white, because black does not deserve this break too early. Normally, black has to prepare it by playing D6, bishop E6, and then go for D5 after castling. Here he goes for it directly, which could have been punished by Aditya. King is still in the middle, right? So white could have done something here. He played pawn takes, knight takes, and now he played rook e1. There must have been a better move in the position. Yeah, it must have been knight. No, knight takes doesn't work, right? What would be good move? Was it bishop takes knight? No, that's not it. Let's just check with the ancient what was the best. Queen b3. Wow. Wow, that's a very difficult move to find. That was the only move that keeps that makes it a winning position, but that's very difficult to find. He played rook e1, which is very natural. Now after rook e1, it's a good position for white. Black plays queen d6, knight d2. The engines again give advantage for white. Could white play something like knight takes? Was it possible? Like knight takes pawn here. The king is in the middle. Yeah, it was possible. He should have gone for it. And then knight takes on d4. You get back the piece, and it's winning. It's a great position. If for example, you cannot castle also, because pawn takes, queen takes, and then rook takes, right? And if queen moves, then this knight is also hanging. So this would have been winning for Aditya if he had played knight takes. Because the king is in the middle, rook is on e1, knight's on f3, you got to go for it. He played this quiet move, knight d2, reduces the advantage. But knight f6, knight b3, bishop g4, h3, bishop back, bishop e3, takes, and castles long. This is where the game becomes really interesting. Now you have opposite side castling, and we know that when people castle opposite sides, whoever attacks fastest and fiercest wins. Now let's see what happens next. Who attacks better? Aditya goes for a4. He gets a first pawn push in. So basically, black wants to push these pawns here, open up the king side. White wants to play these pawns forward and open up the queen side, if possible with pieces also, like queen b3, after say knight move somewhere, queen b3, b4, b1, and all those things. E4, that's a very nice move by Atan, opening up the queen to this diagonal, giving a square for the knight. G4 played by Aditya. This is a very risky move. G4 is a very risky move because you are helping black. Because now after bishop moves back, H5 move will open up the position fast. The contact happens first, unlike when it was on G2. Pawns will come into contact faster. So this is very risky. He should have gone for something else, like play on the queen side, like knight E5 was an option. He goes for knight F. Yeah, he has to save the knight now, right? Knight's hanging. So knight E5. Knight takes, a6. A6 is a risky move for black as well. There was no need. I mean, he was stopping knight b5, threatening this and this. But was knight b5 that big a threat to be stopped? Because generally you don't want to play moves, especially pawn moves on the side where you're castled. Now this b4, b5 comes very fast. That's a problem. Goes for b4, takes, 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 takes. So we have some stability in the position now. Rook has like come to a good square, knight's good. But white king looks a lot less safe than the black king. h5. Atan strikes immediately with h5. Of course, Aditya does not want to allow pawn takes and open up the g file and h file. So he tries to close the position with g5. Knight moves to e4, b5. So Aditya desperately wants to create some action on the queen side. f6. It's a very nice move by Atan. After pawn takes, g pawn would take and the g file would be open. That's a plan. Takes, takes. You can see that he didn't want to take with the b pawn so that the file is not opened. B file is already half open. If you open this also, it will be very easy to attack. Rook e3, knight takes pawn. Queen c2, rook e8, queen f5, king moves, rook b1. You can see that white has got some play now. But rook takes, pawn takes, and the king is completely open. This position is very risky for white, for Aditya. Queen d6. Atan brings his queen over, threatening moves like queen g3 and knight h3. Aditya plays king g2 to stop queen g3. Pawn b6. Was that necessary? That created some unnecessary weakness. b6, a5 will come. Knight can come to c6 at some point. Queen b5. So this was an unnecessary move played by Atan. It reduces advantage by a lot. Engine gives like -5 here, and it goes to -1.7 after this. So a5. Aditya tries to attack immediately. Queen d5. Oh, so this is now an endgame. Atan takes the game to an endgame, exchanges of queens. I mean, you might want to keep the queens and play with for an attack, but he must also have been scared of opening up his king. So he goes for queen d5, takes, 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 takes. So now it's a pure endgame, and black's pawn structure is better. Yes, white has got one passed pawn, but that pawn is only a target. It's not an asset. Black's pawns are together, they're not weak compared to these pawns, which are like islands. 3 islands. And rook moves, rook a5, rook check, knight b3, check, e2. This is a nice move by Atan. Now he's not giving white the time to push his pawn forward because there is no time. If the pawn is hanging, how do you defend it? If you go king f4, I guess rook f4 would be good enough. If you go king f4, h3 hangs. So if you go here, he'll take the pawn. So you can't do that also. So the pieces are not coordinated enough for white. King is open. So that is why white is not able to use his pass pawn or his pieces. White just goes for knight c5, king moves, knight check, and now there is a repetition. White can easily repeat here, and they agree to a draw at this moment. So after this draw, Atan would be on 4.5, Aditya would be on 5. So Aditya would probably be second, tied for second with many 2 or 3 people. So it all depended on this game, Vaishnavi Ahan. Can Ahan win against Vaishnavi and go to join first with Aditya and maybe one person? No, yeah, one person among these two, no? Dhruv and Jay. One person will go to 5. Or can Vaishnavi win and be the champion? And it was a very interesting game, Vaishnavi versus Ahan. Let me take you to the opening very fast. E4, E5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. You have the same opening. And here, Vaishnavi plays a very defensive setup. d6 is not the right move here. So if you learn the opening properly, you'll know that knight f6 is the correct move. Of course, white will play d4, but you have to learn those lines to play a good game. But h6 is also defensive, d6 is also defensive because you give white a lot of the sender and you cannot challenge it also. You can see white has a great position. Castles, h3, rook e1, rook e8, knight f1. So this knight is heading to g3 or e3 and then f5. So that's a very common maneuver in the Giko piano and Rilopus. Knight g3, b5, bishop back, bishop b7, a4, knight h4, takes, rook c1. So white has a very good edge in the position. Rook c8, takes, queen d3, bishop goes to a8. Why? Oh, to stop queen b5. So now if I play queen b5, what would happen actually? d4 will hang. D4 will hang. So what was the point of bishop a8? That is a small mystery to me. Why did she play bishop a8? Engines do not like the move much, but they don't think it's bad also. Let's just try to understand. Let's say she plays a normal move like h6. What is white's threat? Queen b5, knight d4 is there, right? What is the problem? Knight d4, there is... Oh, the bishop will hang. Okay. Bishop will hang after queen b5. So that was a deep move by Vaishnavi. She plays bishop a8. And now if queen takes b5, then knight takes pawn, it's equal. So Ahan goes for rook e3. There was another option of going knight f5. It's a nice square for the knight. But it'll just get kicked back later. But still, it can stay there as long as it wants. As long as it can. Rook e3 is fine. Queen g5. And now Ahan plays rook f1. When you see this move, you will understand that he wants to play pawn f4. That's a plan, right? But there is a very interesting idea in the position. Instead of playing rook f1 and move it from a good file to a file where you need to open up with f4, you can directly play f4. The move that you were trying to prepare can actually be played directly. Queen cannot take. If queen takes, then rook f1 and f7 hangs along with the rook. You cannot defend it, right? Bishop f7 and the exchange is gone. This is winning for white. So that was a very interesting idea that Ahan missed. He goes for rook f1, but it gives black time. He plays knight a5. Bishop goes back. He doesn't want to exchange of the bishop right now. Knight c4. Now it has to be exchanged. He's getting a pawn. But this was Vaishnavi's idea, the move d5. This was a plan to get back the pawn. And this is the first critical moment of the game. Ahan blunders here. Not Ahan. Sorry. Ahan blunders here. He does not see a tactic that is in the position. You can see this rook and knight are being supported by one pawn. This pawn is overloaded. So if this pawn is not there, then rook takes rook and then the knight falls. That's exactly what happened. Correct move here should have been to just play queen c5, stopping the pawn from taking here. But Ahan plays in this position after d5. So d5 is a move that Vaishnavi played really well. Like the idea of giving up the exchange and a pawn, basically the pawn, to play d5. That kind of threw Ahan off, and he played pawn takes. The first blunder in the game. Because now rook takes rook, pawn takes, and Vaishnavi is a full piece up. Ahan tried to fight on with rook f3, queen moves, and e4. These pawns are helping each other, but Vaishnavi broke through. Like after a few moves, she moved the queen around, trying to get a good setup, a good tactic, and then here, after this, queen moved, king moved, queen moved. So they just waited around a little bit, and then here, this is where. So once she found queen g5, this is the move that breaks through, because now bishop takes pawn as a threat, and you cannot stop this threat also. If you push the pawn, she just takes directly, and you cannot defend the rook twice. You only got a queen. You're down a piece. So he just played queen f2 and then bishop takes. He pushed, but now the bishop is very active. Rook comes in the game, queen check, king moves, takes. Still some work to be done for Vaishnavi. And she exchanges rooks. It's a bishop extra. Pawn forward, king moves. She somehow exchanges queens, and that's over. And that's it. That's what happened. So she managed to exchange queens, and the king bishop endgame is of course winning for black. Okay, she could have just pushed a pawn and won. Okay, let's push. She goes for the other pawns, which is fine. And you get the queen. You get another queen, and you give checkmate. So that meant that at the end of 6 rounds, Vaishnavi became the champion with that final round win. She had a draw against Aditya in the 5th round with 5.5 points. Aditya and Dhruv were tied for second and third, with 5 points, and there were 3 people on 4.5, Atan, Advaith, and Asmi. Ahan, after that loss, went down to 4 points. So 7th to 11th, they were tied on 4 points. Ahan, Aryan, Jai, Arshad, and Nishwant. So it was a very good last round and very two really crucial matches on the top two board.